Up until about 3 years ago, I had absolutely no interest in geometry at all. So everything you're going to hear, I've picked up in the last 3 years. Also, it's a lot of stuff. What I'm going to tell you has got a really exciting kind of narrative to it, and you'll understand it all and understand the pictures as I show it to you, but there's every chance when we get to the end that you'll forget it. But the thing is that all the shapes I'm going to show you are actually hardwired into your system. You'll find yourself drifting in and out. Some bits you'll feel really enthusiastic about, other bits you might feel a little bit dozy about. That's partly because of the shapes, and it's partly because it's an hour and a quarter of information, and we basically only do 15 or 20 minutes at a time. Then we need a 5-minute gap or so. So nonetheless, I decided some time ago the best thing to do with this is run through with it, because it is a continuous story. I'm going to have a little bit of an introduction as to what geometry is and a few technical terms. There will be no maths. It's all going to be pictures and forms in this particular talk. And what I intend to do is take you from a single point, which is where geometry starts. Geometry is how number unfolds into space. So we'll be talking a bit about the point, a bit about separate dimensions, and then I want to introduce you to these shapes here. Primarily these 5 that are at the front of the desk, and then the 13, that's the sisters that lie behind them. I should think it'll take about an hour or an hour and a quarter. So if I speed up at the end, it's because I've noticed that I'm not making it, which is what normally happens. So we'll kick off with geometry. As I say, it's the way number unfolds into space. So it's the way spirit occupies matter, if you like. That's geometry, basically. The reason why this is called sacred geometry, in my opinion, there's loads of reasons if you look at it, but one of the reasons is the geometry we're looking at here, the basic geometry, lies at the base of the growth of absolutely everything. Crystals, humans, animals, plants, the ecosphere, the whole thing basically relies initially on the geometries that we're going to be talking about today. There isn't anything here on this planet that isn't based on these geometries. So that puts it at the heart of things, if you like, sacred, right at the core. The stuff we're talking about today was first written down 350 years BC by a chap called Euclid. And since then, this information hasn't changed. That's another thing that makes it sacred. Because if we look at science, it changes its mind every day. And if we look at religion, it changes its mind every 350 years or so. Geometry never changes its mind. It is actually the foundation of everything. The other reason why I think it's sacred, why it's sacred geometry as opposed to just geometry, is that you do not need to understand the maths. If you do what I did, which as soon as I discovered this subject was start playing with a pencil and paper and start trying to draw the stuff, you realise fairly quickly that all you need for all these complicated forms is a pair of compasses, if you're inside, or a rope and a peg if you're outside, and a ruler if you're inside, or a big straight edge if you're outside. With a rope and a compasses and a ruler and a straight edge, you can draw most of the basic forms. You'll see some of them growing out of each other during the course. So those are my opinions as to why it's called sacred. Obviously it's used in our sacred sites, so it's used in the layout of stone circles, burial barrows, the Mayan pyramids, our churches. The churches, when they occupied the ancient sacred sites that were there before the churches arrived, there was a saint what the Christian church did was establish a saint at that local site, and then they try and make sure that the church was facing sunrise, I think it is, on that saint's day. So all the churches are slightly differently oriented depending on whose saint they're actually what saint they're actually applied to. But within the church, the geometries are all the same. It's a slide I can't show this time, but a lot of these shapes, when they're unfolded, actually make the shape of a church or a cathedral. So again, one way or the other, they're even still, beyond all the being at the heart of everything, they're actually attached to our religious institutions, even to this day. So I want to start off, we're going to, like I say, when we get to the actual start of geometry, we will start from the point. But I want to start with one or two ideas that are a little bit important to the way things actually build themselves up. And one of the first things I want to talk about is this idea of similarity. So here you can see we have a design that's made entirely out of triangles. There's a big pink triangle here, and then 3 green triangles. The thing about this is that each of these triangles... Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, okay. He'll keep doing that to me. Well, I'm not used to being mic'd up. The point about each triangle is that it's exactly a quarter the area of the triangle above it. So this big pink triangle is 4 times the size of the green triangles. You could fit 4 of these green triangles inside the pink one, 4 of the orange ones inside the green one, 4 of the yellows inside the orange, and 4 of the pink inside the yellow. That's a really beautiful thing. You can already see how one simple 3-sided form is making a very beautiful thing. An important point to notice about this is that if we drew a circle round it, and if we were to add more half-size triangles to the little pink ones, say I had an unimaginably sharp pair of scissors, and I could keep adding triangles, they'd never move outside the circle that bounds this design. So although the thing's surface area is growing and growing and growing, it would stay inside its own bounds. So we need to start questioning straight away this idea that our growing is at the expense of something else. Everything can grow infinitely in its own space without treading on the feet of anything else. Also with this one, you can imagine that we could fit an orange triangle inside here and then a yellow triangle inside that one, so that as well as growing infinitely outwards, round the edge, it could grow infinitely inwards. So these slightly smaller triangles that I'd stick on there would turn up in here. Now, if you imagine, when we used to be able to do this with bits of cut-out card even before we invented computers. But once we invented computers, we could say, here's the basic start, and when you press the go button, I want you to put an orange triangle in here and a yellow in there and a pink one in here, and then the whole thing scintillates in front of you, and you can see yourself going down and down and down into a shape which is only flat. It's on a computer screen. But as more and more tiny triangles are added, you go ever deeper into the thing, remembering that it's never getting any bigger than it is at the moment. A very fantastic thing, and that's a simple fractal, that is. Growth through self-similarity, and you can already see how a beautiful thing can be grown just from a single triangle. This is an example of the same sort of idea. This has been made by a friend of mine who does my website and moon calendars and lots of other things. You'll hear me refer to Mick the Moon quite a lot probably. This has been warped slightly so that the diamonds round the edge kind of make 3D shapes. But within the middle there's only 3 sorts of diamond. There's that one, and that one. And these are called Penrose patterns. This one's been made in a very orderly fashion, but by and large, as future pictures I'm going to get will show, they can be made to really wander around and stuff. But that's a self-similar form, looks like a stained glass window. And notice how your eyes won't be able to keep these bits flat. They'll be trying to make them into cubes and into spheres and things like that, even though it's on a flat screen and it's a flat design. So that's one example of a fractal called a Penrose fractal. This is a fractal shape that we're more familiar with seeing. This one I think is a Julia set. The Mandelbrot set is the most common one. I'm not going to go into details about the maths and everything, but to make one of these, they have an equation, and the answer to the equation involves part of the question. So as the computer decides that it's come up with an answer, the question changes, and it develops these fantastic wild pictures where everything, you can see there's little baby versions of this absolutely everywhere. The places where the computer loses it, it just kind of goes into different colours. But on the computer, you could zoom into this bit of it here, and you'd find kind of expanded versions of this. So this is actually a very, very simple equation. And before we started having computers, we couldn't tell what it would look like. All the mathematicians could tell was that it was interested. So this is like growth through self-similarity, just like this. The original conditions of this are being used, simple things, 3 letters maybe, and an equals sign. When you press the go button, make this on a computer. So that's how easy it is.